Okay, let's dive right into this explainer by looking at what's honestly a truly wild piece of human history. I mean, think about it. Thousands of years ago, humanity pulled off one of the strangest and most impactful feats imaginable. We took wild, formidable predators like wolves and literally transformed them into our loyal dogs. We took wild cattle and boars and turned them into cows and pigs. We even took wild horses and turned them into companions, workers, and our absolute primary way of getting around. This whole process of domestication fundamentally shaped the course of our civilization. Entire species were literally reshaped from the ground up to fit alongside human life. But, here's the catch that we're really going to explore today. Almost all of that incredible transformation, it happened thousands of years ago, way back in our ancient past.
So that naturally makes us ask, have we already domesticated everything worth domesticating? Since our ancestors kind of did all the heavy lifting millennia ago, are we just done? Or is there an animal alive right now out there today that could actually become the next dog or the next horse? Well, believe it or not, scientists actually have an answer to this. They have a definite frontrunner for the exact species we might domesticate next. But okay, to really grasp why this specific animal is the top candidate, we first have to clear up a pretty massive misconception about what domestication actually means.
Right. Before we reveal that frontrunner, we really need to draw a hard line here between taming and domestication. People confuse these two all the time, and they are absolutely not the same thing. Look, you can raise a tiger from a cub, and sure, it might become tame. It might tolerate humans, and it might even act super affectionate toward its caretaker. But that is just one individual animal. Domestication, on the other hand, only happens when an entire species changes genetically over multiple generations just to live alongside us. It's this deep-seated biological shift, not just some learned behavior. And as history shows us time and time again, achieving that genetic shift is incredibly difficult.
To show you exactly how tough domestication really is, let's look at the ultimate historical failure, zebras. Now, on paper, zebras seem like the absolute perfect candidate, right? I mean, they're similar in size to horses, they're definitely strong enough to ride, and they naturally live in herds. It makes total sense, yet they completely fail the test. If you've ever, imagined riding a zebra into battle, you'd very quickly find out why humans gave up on that idea. For centuries, humans tried to domesticate them, but zebras just possess these incredibly hostile traits. They are highly aggressive, their behavior is notoriously unpredictable, and they flat out refuse to breed selectively in captivity. So those compliant traits that made wild horses so incredibly useful to early humans, they simply do not exist in zebras.
And this leads us to a really crucial observation from biologist Jared Diamond. He noted that most species will completely fail the domestication test. Some panic way too easily, some are just way too aggressive, and others don't have the required social structures that let humans kind of step in as the leader of the pack. Because of these super strict biological requirements, Diamond points out that only a tiny fraction of large animal species even possess the right combination of traits to be domesticated in the first place. Put simply, humanity probably already picked all the obvious winners a very, very long time ago.
But what if we didn't pick all of them? Let's get into Section 1, the silver fox experiment, which was originally conducted by a fascinating Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev back in 1959.
So Belyaev essentially wanted to recreate the domestication of the wolf in real time, right before our eyes, but using a totally different animal. His methodology was elegantly simple. He started with wild silver foxes, and he selectively bred only the friendliest individuals. During this whole experiment, absolutely nothing else mattered. He didn't care about the fox's size, its appearance, or how smart it was. Nope. The only metric for selection was friendliness and a lack of aggression toward humans. He just repeated this process generation after generation, carefully selecting only the tamest pups to reproduce.
And what happened next literally shocked the scientific community. The foxes didn't just become friendlier, their entire biology shifted. In just a few decades, which, by the way, is an absolute blink of an eye in evolutionary terms, these foxes developed floppy ears and curly tails. Their coats started showing entirely new colors and patterns. Even their behaviors morphed into something totally unrecognizable for a wild fox. They started wagging their tails, actively seeking out human attention, and eagerly following people around like dogs. By solely selecting for friendliness, Belyaev had accidentally triggered this massive cascade of physical and biological transformations. This experiment essentially proves that the exact same process that turned fearsome wolves into our cuddly domestic dogs works just as well on foxes. Adapting to human companionship is this incredibly powerful catalyst. Once a species begins that adaptation process, a whole host of other behavioral, physical, and biological changes follow right behind it. And this is exactly why scientists consider the fox to be the absolute strongest scientific candidate for future domestication. We don't even have to guess if it's possible anymore. We have literal decades of hard data demonstrating that the process works perfectly.
But okay, here is the massive catch. Let's say we finalize the domestication of foxes tomorrow. What role would they actually fill? You see, our ancestors domesticated animals to solve really vital, life-or-death, practical problems. They desperately needed animals for heavy labor, for transportation, protection, and food. Today, though, modern technology and machines handle almost all of those jobs infinitely better than any animal ever could. We simply don't have a practical need for a new domesticated worker.
And this paradigm-shifting idea leads us perfectly into Section 2, the cat paradigm, and the really fascinating concept of natural domestication.
Think about it. If we don't need animals for pure utility anymore, future domestication probably won't be engineered in a lab. It's going to happen entirely naturally simply because a species becomes highly compatible with human life. Contrary to popular belief, humans didn't actually sit down and invent the house cat. In fact, you could argue they sort of domesticated us. Early farming societies started storing massive amounts of grain, which naturally attracted mice, which, you guessed it, attracted wild cats. A beautiful mutual benefit just emerged out of nowhere. The cats got incredibly easy food, and the humans got free, highly effective pest control. The friendliest cats, who were brave enough to stick around humans, benefited the most, and over time, both species just naturally adapted to each other.
And the big takeaway you should get from this is that evolution never stopped. Animals are continually adapting to human environments right this very second. Evolution didn't just halt the moment we built cities and invented smartphones. Living alongside humans actually happens to be incredibly advantageous for species that can figure out how to navigate our concrete jungles.
I mean, just look at these incredible modern adapters, literally right outside your window. Entire species are adjusting to human environments in ways that would leave our ancestors totally speechless. We've got urban foxes that have learned to completely thrive in modern cities, scavenging and navigating busy streets with ease. We have crows that possess the astonishing ability to actually recognize and remember individual human faces, like they know exactly who is friendly and who is a threat. No way, right? We even have certain bird species that have learned to use the rhythm of human traffic patterns to crush hard nuts on the asphalt. They just swoop in to grab the food the second the red light stops the cars.
The history of domestication tells us a really profound story here. It isn't actually about humans exerting dominance or controlling animals. It is, fundamentally, about cooperation. The animals that successfully integrated into human society weren't necessarily the strongest or the fastest or even the smartest. They were simply the ones capable of building a mutually beneficial relationship with us. Wolves became dogs because the partnership kept both sides fed and safe. Cats moved in because life by our side was simply easier than life out in the wild.
So while the hard science and genetics might point to the silver fox as our best bet for the next domesticated species, the truly fascinating possibility actually lies completely outside the laboratory. If future domestication relies on cooperation and mutual benefit, then the next great leap in animal-human relationships won't happen just because we decide to create it. It's going to happen because a species slowly realizes its future is brighter with us than without us. Which leaves us with this final, thrilling question to ponder. What animal is already out there, quietly adapting to our modern world, choosing us, and we simply haven't even noticed it yet?